Another red flag is if I am finding myself feeling discouraged, if I'm feeling myself overwhelmed, am I feeling myself alone? Am I feeling myself hurt? Am I feeling myself frustrated? Because at those times, I too am vulnerable. And so if I find myself in a position where I'm feeling this overwhelmed sense, or this frustrated sense, or this hurt, alone sense, then I am going to be more open to misreading those cues and finding myself vulnerable to perhaps the violation of a relationship boundary. Another red flag, it seems to me, is when I find myself meeting a parishioner outside the more formal setting, or perhaps at odd hours. The more formal settings are the pastor's study, the hospital, those kinds of settings. But there are occasions when we may find ourselves meeting outside. I remember not following my own red flag when I was pastoring a church up in eastern Kentucky, that I had a lady in the church who was very needy, and I met her on occasions at her home when neither her husband nor her children were there. That was not very wise. And I think we need to be aware that we can meet persons on their turf and where they live, but for our own protection we need to make sure that there are others present with that. Another red flag is if I find myself feeling more like a friend, particularly an intimate friend, than this person's pastor. Because when I am with another human being, I'm there as a pastor, I'm there as a representative of God and His love and His caring. And if I find myself being that person's intimate friend and not their pastor, then I need to ask myself, is that a red flag to where I may be looking at perhaps some kind of boundary violation? I think another red flag is if I find myself spending too much time with certain persons in the parish to the exclusion of others because of the return I'm getting for that. Is it meeting my need? Is it building up my weakness? Is it responding to my need for loneliness? And then I think another red flag is, am I using others for my own agenda rather than listening to what's going on in their heart? Am I listening to their heartstrings, or am I just merely using them and being tied up with my own success as well? Am I getting caught up in my own agenda, in my own personal goals? And then the final red flag is what I call role reversal. Is the parishioner taking care of me rather than my taking care of them? With this in mind, what are some guidelines that we can consider? I want to mention about 5 or 6 of them. One, I think we need to be honest with ourselves. And I think that comes to being aware, being self-aware. Getting in touch with me, accepting my holiness and accepting my humanness. And I think both of those have to be accepted. And to me, that's the message of the New Testament anyway, is accepting my holiness and accepting my humanness. And so if I become aware of who I am on both sides of me, then I am less likely to get myself in trouble in a boundary violation.